Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto video. This is going to be my speculation ahead of Boruto Chapter 78, which is coming out on February 20th as far as I'm aware. So we are a week away from the chapter. I don't think any spoilers have dropped yet for the upcoming chapter, so this is a good time to speculate about it. So obviously, as ever, I'll base this mostly on what happened in the previous chapter, but also what's happened in the series so far, to speculate on and do some final 77 discussion as well as where we are going forward. So, straight away, key notes, because we're in the big stuff here. This is the key point in all of this, is that the incident that is going to get us to like the time skip and the flash forward, we have started it. It doesn't feel like there is any way to stop this, reset, and then build up to something like this happening again. There's been enough teases, enough fake outs. It's happening here. Naruto and Hinata have been sent somewhere. That is one of the things that we know happens ahead of this flash forward. So we're here. The other thing is obviously the Boruto, the blue eyes taking everything from you situation. That has to be happening any second now, especially now that they've literally shown us again a vision of the future of, you know, what I guess is going to happen in the next couple of chapters. And Kawaki looks to be now potentially going after Boruto again. So we're here. I don't think there's any way that they can overly stretch things out and have like a return to boring chapters. We're in the middle of big action happening here. And that's what's fascinating about this, that I don't think many people expected that last chapter. Again, like I pointed out, that's the second in the 4-chapter volume. They rarely, if ever, do big things during these sort of more middle kind of chapters of volumes. It's typically volume starts, volume ending chapters. And we're obviously now in the transition from chapter 2 of a volume into chapter 3 of a volume, which is what 78 is going to be. So again, it's that idea we're looking forward to sort of the setup leading to the 4th chapter of this volume probably being something absolutely massive. So it does feel like within the next 2-3 chapters, huge things have to happen. And you can already say that in chapter 77, big stuff happened already. So the big thing here is, I suppose, from a Kawaki character point of view, we got what his sort of goal is, his motivation now that he's sort of, in a way, setting out on his own. He's doing what needs to be done, even if it hurts his relationships with the people who he cares about. His goal is now to destroy all Otsutsuki. It's shifted from being a specific hatred of the karma mark, maybe Ishiki specifically, to now being just, I want to actually, in a way, kind of stop this from ever happening. The Otsutsuki are the ones influencing things so much with their quest for power, wanting to destroy the world, and everything that they've done to everyone they've involved in these plans. But this also happens to include Boruto, since Momoshiki is still inside of Boruto. Boruto's Otsutsuki. And as part of Kawaki's goals, he needs to take out Boruto. He's also driven by a want to protect Naruto at all costs. This is the person of everyone who's the most important in the world to Kawaki, and he has to protect him. And it's so interesting that like he's doing this because, you know, he really lays out a lot of what his views are on this thing. It was just like so clearly him saying that, like, basically, it surprises me how much I want to protect you, how much you have changed me and formed me into this person. And because of that, and I want to protect you, and because of the person that you are, like you are now just a shinobi with some of your power gone. In a way, Kawaki doesn't view Naruto as being powerful enough to protect himself or kind of in a way anyone else. And that's the kind of very interesting thing here. Kawaki has gone then this path of viewing basically the Otsutsuki as being the only ones who have like a true level of power, that he is going to use their power to eliminate them, and we'll see at the end what comes out of that. He seems to almost accept that at the end of his path he knows that the people he cares about will want to come after him and kill him for what he has done. You know, he's willing to become the villain to wipe out the other villains. And if that affects his, you know, position with the other like hero characters who he cares about, so be it. And then there's also the view on Shinobi, that because of his view on what power kind of is, he thinks that ninja are just simply those who die earlier. They try to help, but he just views it as none of them are as powerful as Otsutsuki, and so it is just people dying for no reason. And because Naruto is a ninja through and through, Naruto will just be one of the first to die the next Otsutsuki encounter that comes in. Which, you know, it's not exactly wrong, because Naruto, depowered as he is now, isn't going to be able to handle a fight against another Otsutsuki. So what is the kind of solution here? And that is what's so interesting about his viewpoint, and that at this point in the series, him and having this viewpoint is one of the only ways to really, I suppose, go after the Otsutsuki and attempt to eliminate them. We'll see what the full scope of this is, how he hopes to do this, other characters who will join him, but it's a very, very interesting transition for the character, which I think they've done so far very well. Now we have to see when, I suppose, in the coming chapter, we'll see him probably confront Boruto and full on reveal that this is the way I view things, this is what I want to do. And how the brothers basically will react when they find out about this. How will Himawari feel knowing that Kawaki has gone down this path? Sarada, Mitsuki, these other characters, how will they view what Kawaki has done? The likes of, say, Shikamaru is going to be like, I kind of had a feeling something like this was coming. But everyone else who's grown to trust Kawaki a little bit, there'll be a surprise over this, and how will he tackle these situations? So, you know, obviously we get the stuff at the end, the more character stuff, filled stuff, where he feels like he can't just go off and do this on his own. He has to tell them ahead of time. Tell these people who have meant so much to him, Naruto and Hinata, that this is what I'm doing, and unfortunately that does involve killing your son, killing Boruto, killing my brother, and he, you know, he'll lean into that. Because that's the point here, like Hinata basically calls him like crazy. No reasonable person would think this way, but Kawaki this is what he feels that he has to do. He'll sacrifice everything to make this happen. So he sends both of them away to, I'm guessing, you know, his, there's a little bit of questions surrounding this, because of course his ability, the shrinking ability, he can't shrink other people, otherwise it would just be like a very, very overpowered ability. But part of that ability and what he can do is he can shrink other things and put them in basically his own sort of like pocket dimension. Now, we don't really know, and this might be the reveal, that I'm guessing what he can do is, because he has space-time ninjutsu, he can just create a portal, but the portal is to his pocket dimension. So he's not shrinking Naruto and Hinata down. He's just full size, putting them into his own personal space. He doesn't have to shrink them, but there is the reveal that he has that space that he can put things into. And this makes sense as being sort of the mysterious place where he's placed Naruto, because it is a place that, as far as we're aware, only he can access. Now, maybe they'll do a kind of a Obito Kakashi type thing, where there is another way kind of to make it happen, but, you know, we have to see. Because, I don't know, when it comes to like Naruto and Hinata both being taken away, again, I'd be shocked if we're getting Naruto and Hinata back from this, and then Naruto is placed somewhere else. But with Hinata, are we going to see some sort of a way where somehow either Boruto, Sasuke, they're able to get in there and save one of them? And of course Naruto would want to save Hinata by getting her out. And is that something that happens, that Hinata does actually get saved from the other dimension? Or is it just that both of them are away? Because I can see the value in maybe doing it either way, in that taking away basically Boruto and Himawari's parents changes the sort of dynamic of the show. Boruto has always had the house, the family to go back to, and now he's going to be on his own. The betrayal of his brother, all this crazy stuff happening, and the need for him to, quote unquote, try and like act on his own to try and solve this. As again, if Kawaki's gone, that leaves Boruto as being, you know, one of the characters with the high potential on the hero side of things to actually counter other Otsutsuki or Kawaki. And this is where we're going to really need growth from a lot of these characters to make this happen. And then interestingly, he does accept that afterwards, you know, when it's done, when my goal, my mission is done, I accept that you'll come after me and try to kill me. So very interesting stuff from Kawaki. Any scene with him in the next chapter is going to just be so interesting to see what he immediately moves to do next, what characters he interacts with, and how he tackles dealing with them. So another key part of this is code. This chapter, the last chapter, seemed to basically confirm Code is not going to attack immediately, but it all hinges basically upon the idea that as long as Eida is in the Leaf Village and willing to work with them to a certain degree, she is an early warning system for the Leaf Village. They already know he has an army. She knows that much already. So if he moves to attack the village, she will tell them straight away. There's no surprise attack as long as Eida is on the Leaf Village's side. The question, obviously, is that if Kawaki eventually leaves the village, Eida will go with Kawaki. I think that's very, very clear. And the second she leaves, Code will attack. And how does that dynamic work? And we'll get to discussing that in a little bit. But Code specifically is a weird character because he is effectively the main villain in the series, though I think a lot of fans are kind of struggling with the idea of, like, you know, he still has to prove himself so much as a villain. And okay, he has this army, he has the will of the Otsutsuki, but at the same time, this is the same character who apparently is weaker than Daemon. And, you know, his personality doesn't seem amazing as a main villain character. So we need to do something more. And it's a case of, as we go forward with Code, are we just going to use him as sort of a transition villain? Or is he actually important within the future of the series going forward? Because to me, I am kind of immediately looking more ahead to me, the main villains eventually in Boruto are going to be other Otsutsukis and probably like the heads of the clan and stuff like that. Code can work in some ways, but I need to be shown why I need to care more about Code. And that's what's so interesting about, like, this arc basically in the anime has kind of just about started. And we got the important Code episode that's effectively our true introduction to the character. And it's like, oh yeah, he's important. But it's what they've done with him that kind of makes you feel that, okay, like, he can cause a lot of damage, but I'm not sure I still buy into the fact that, like, he feels like one of the better villains in the show. He has a reason to hate a bunch of characters, a reason to go after the village. But I also think there's so much other interesting stuff going on in the series that he just does ultimately feel a bit lower down the list and things I care about. The demon stuff, I think, is quite interesting. He is interested in Himawari all of a sudden. And the question is, obviously, what is this? Is it a crush? Like, basically him dealing with having feelings like this for the first time? Is it him actually noting some sort of hidden power within Himawari? Is it a mix of both? Or is there something else that we're talking about here? Because the big word that's used here is that, given that what actually happens in the scene is that, like, he says, like, well, what was that intensity? That's what he seems to note about her. That's what interests him. But then he also does when Boruto says she's not a shinobi. She's not as strong as you think. And Demon's like, oh yeah, up close, yeah, she is kind of weak. So the intensity doesn't necessarily mean strength as such. And then if you look at Himawari in those scenes, nothing she does stands out. Like, she doesn't defend herself. She doesn't suddenly turn on like a sort of determined face that might have surprised Daemon or something like that. No, she's just like protecting herself type thing. And outwardly, in terms of just her potentially showing intensity, that's not what we see. So is he talking about some sort of a power flare-up that happened at this time? I'm not really sure. Is it just that he can sense that she has the Byakugan? Boruto does bring up that, like, when she gets, like, annoyed, that she goes into that sort of alter ego kind of mode where she does the whole lock on thing. Is there actually something to that, or is that just still a jokey thing? We don't actually particularly know. But at the very least, in my opinion, I think it's very difficult to fully go down one way or the other. Because very clearly, part of the discussion is that Boruto begins to interpret Demon's interest in Himawari as some sort of a crush. And that's why the scene, especially you read it as you could, is is sort of Boruto going like, as a brother, I don't approve of this type thing. And why would he say that if it was their discussion about how powerful Himawari is? So, you know, that's another thing to kind of like discuss in all of this. Again, is this a tease of something immediate, or is that something more for the future? Like, again, we're thinking about post-time skip. Himawari, we're expecting to be used a little bit more within the series. What will that result in? That's what we're looking for. The other angle on this is that Daemon as a character is very much defined by, of course, his ability, which is to kind of reflect violent intent back upon people. That if you try to kill him, he reflects that against you, and that's how you kill yourself, basically. So it makes him very difficult to deal with. Now, I think Bug explained to us that there's a little bit of a trick to it, in that like touch is involved in it to a certain extent. But he's also like probably one of the quickest characters in the entire franchise, so he's just a good fighter full stop, and that's why he technically is the most powerful character in the series at this point in time. But it does mean that it sort of suggests that his weakness would be, what if someone attacks him without a kind of violent intent, that there is a way to work around his abilities, and then him, who probably isn't used to feeling when he fights necessarily, how does he feel when maybe, potentially what's happened here, is that the reason he didn't follow through with his punch on Himawari is because he couldn't bring himself to do it. He didn't want to, because of his own feelings. And say what you will about, like, oh, that's a bit weird. We're talking about a shonen series here. Why are we talking about kind of romance, crushes, love, and stuff like that? And it's like, well, what's Eida's character? Eida's character arc is completely defined by wanting to seek out kind of true love. The hatred of her abilities to a certain extent, because it prevents her from having true relationships with people. She only wants, to see how an actual relationship with Kawaki can work, because Kawaki's one of the few people who her ability doesn't work on. So if that's Eida's arc, I don't think it's unreasonable to also suggest that Demon's arc is also to some extent about, that sort of connection style thing. Because he obviously cares about his sister to a certain degree, but here's his own like personal thing, because that's the point. We always link these two characters together, that like if Eida goes with Kawaki, Daemon will go with Eida because he's just linked to her, and she decides what they do and he just follows her. When will we get more of a sense of him as an individual, not just controlled effectively almost by his sister? Interesting things with him, because he is the number one powerful character in the series. And again, in terms of that power level dynamic, Kawaki leaving actually kind of fits, because it means that Kawaki is sort of protected for the entire time skip. That even if he doesn't form a giant group, just because it's him as being one of the more powerful characters, Daemon as the most powerful, and then Eida has also having crazy powers as well. Those three alone can pretty much hide out wherever they want, and no one can really do anything against them. That is a nice group to kind of like work with when we come back maybe from a time skip. But then, speculation, more heavy on the speculation. So, what is next for Kawaki? Like, does he go straight after Boruto again? Is that what happens immediately after this? He sent Naruto and Hinata away. So, he's told them what he's about to do. Now he's about to do it. He's basically said, I regret not... I felt like I failed because Boruto was revealed to eventually be alive. So he's going to want to finish the job. That's what he has to do to sort of confirm his beliefs that this is what he wants to do. Obviously, we know Boruto doesn't die. So how exactly does this happen? Because a fight, you think, needs to happen. Boruto has to get the scar on his eye going into the time skip, and we assume thematically it would make sense that it comes from Kawaki. How exactly does this play out? Does he go straight to Boruto after this, and this is where we just get the characters kind of clearing out? The village, of course, is immediately going to know that Naruto and Hinata's chakra signatures are not kind of active anymore. What does that mean? Everyone is going to eventually converge on the idea that, okay, it looks like Kawaki is up to something. And this is, I think, going to bring out the only real, I suppose, notable character who probably can challenge Kawaki, and that is Sasuke. Now, of course, you can make a case for the likes of, Kakashi can still do stuff. Rock Lee, you would assume, if he goes like full gates, would also be a threat. But are they going to do that right now? Are they suddenly going to be like, and the other characters who we haven't focused on all that much, they are actually super, super powerful, and we're going to do it right now? I ultimately don't think so, because again, Kawaki, in doing this, yes, is sort of betraying the Leaf Village by betraying the trust of people. But fundamentally, he is choosing to do something that is going against effectively enemies of the Leaf Village. It's just that he is going to get people going up against him because he's fighting. He wants to kill Boruto. He's being very open about the fact that I have to kill Boruto. And that will make him look like a villain to basically everyone else going on. So this is what's going to prompt, I think, the other characters to obviously fight against Kawaki. And obviously Sasuke, we are expecting to get involved. The setup from many, many chapters ago was that Sasuke regrets not being involved in the last big incident. The Boruto nearly died. He's not going to miss out on another one of these incidents. So is this where we might get the tragic death of Sasuke? At the hands, perhaps, of Kawaki. And this gives enough time for the Leaf Village to kind of build, get the other shinobi involved, and suddenly Kawaki realizes that it was more of an effort to fight Boruto and Sasuke and potentially other characters, and as everyone keeps piling in reinforcements, he will have to leave. And this is when potentially a demon, Eida, make their move, joining him, helping him, a weakened Kawaki escape the village, and is that what actually happens? There's a way that these sequences can play out that just keeps the momentum of the series going. We have to, of course, wait and see. Because they could always surprise us by kind of having him realize that, like, actually, I'll leave first and then we'll do something later, maybe extend it out a little bit. But yeah, it does seem like we ultimately have to get to a situation where he will choose to leave without finishing off Boruto, which in my opinion probably has to just be he only has a certain amount of energy, enough characters get involved that he just has to escape. But in the process, this has to break the friendship, the brotherhood of Kawaki and Boruto to the point where they are enemies going into like post-time skip stuff. Sasuke's death, if they go ahead with it, obviously is going to be impactful for Boruto and Sarada, of course. And that will be the thing. If they're going ahead with this, they have to have this have an impact on Sarada. And this is where we really have to address stuff like, what way are we going with her abilities in terms of like her seeing her father die? That's kind of a potentially Mangekyo Sharingan kind of like inducing kind of event. Is that what we're kind of like building up to here or not? I'm not really sure. That's how little focus I think Sarada specifically as a character has had. And we need to do something with that. And then, of course, there's stuff like this. If Kawaki leaves, of course, Eida and Daemon would very likely go with him. Her goals are all about him. Daemon will follow Eida. That's very clear. She has a certain deal with the village, but the deal is dependent on basically the village kind of facilitating her having this relationship with Kawaki. If he goes against the village, she ultimately cares more about him than I think any sense of loyalty to the village. So I think that's very clear. That's where she will go. And then similarly, Amado Let's not forget Amado in all of this, and the whole, like, he wants to try and bring his daughter Akebi back. That was set up a couple of chapters ago. That Kawaki, and the whole reason he has the karma back now, is to ultimately facilitate reviving Amado's daughter. If Kawaki leaves the village, is Amado going to go with Kawaki as well? And how does this all work as well? Because the other thing here is that, again, I forget the details on this, but doesn't Amado have like a shutdown command on Kawaki that was basically installed at the same time as the karma was put back in him? So Kawaki needs Amado on his side, otherwise Amado can just like shut down Kawaki's whole goals in all of this. So this is still an important dynamic in all of this, and everything I think points to Amado will have to go with Kawaki as well. Otherwise, Kawaki is leaving this way to defeat him with the Leaf Village. And I do think Amado does care more about what's going on with his daughter than the loyalty that he has to the village. So you see this immediate idea of Kawaki will bring a lot of the big players in the village currently with him, just because they need him, because that's what those characters are motivated by. And that's the big question for Amado, and what's going to happen there. Then, this is a sort of Kawaki Code kind of connection here. I'm assuming that Kawaki would want to go after Code, for a few reasons. Code is going to be a threat to Naruto. And even though he's sort of protected Naruto, he would want to take out someone who actively wants to take out Naruto because of what happened to Ishiki. Also, because Code is loyal to the Otsutsuki, and Kawaki knows that, he's going to want to stop him. Do the heroes know exactly that Code's idea is to become an Otsutsuki? I'm not really sure. I'm not sure. I don't think it is the case, but either way, nothing particularly would point to the fact that Kawaki would just want to leave Code doing his own thing. So that has to be something that happens. Obviously, the point that then pops up is that if Eida leaves with Kawaki, this opens up the village to attack from Code, because Code is basically not going to attack while Eida is there. So once Code finds out that maybe Eida has left the village with Kawaki, he is going to make his move. But if he does that, Kawaki would attack him, because those two don't like each other, really. And then it sets up the idea of, is this just how Code is going to be dealt with? Kawaki will deal with him just straight away in the next couple of chapters, and he's done. And he was never meant to be this super important villainous character. Or is there much more going on? Because if they end Code, then all of a sudden, like, what villains do we have? It's the Otsutsuki. Because that's the whole point of this, is that if Kawaki's new goal is to destroy all Otsutsuki, and he does say that, all Otsutsuki, that means he will find a way to seek out the others that are out there that they now know about, because we got the whole God Otsutsuki, this is what the overall goal for Otsutsukis actually is. There are others out there that haven't come to Earth yet. How is he going to actually set to taking out the entire clan? That's the bigger kind of question in all of this. But anyway, so yeah, here. Is this a surprise setup for more Otsutsuki? Because I think that's what we're expecting. I don't think the only Otsutsuki stuff that we're going to deal with from here on out is just that Kawaki has a karma mark, there's the Boruto Momoshiki stuff, and then whatever's going on with Code. We are definitely, I think, eventually going to build up to the idea of what's going on with the god Otsutsuki. Shibai, I believe, was the name. And what is the details of, like, what's left of the clan. Who's the current head of the clan? What did they do? Shibai is apparently gone, ascended to another plane of being. Well, what does that mean? Like, does that mean he can still act on the world as we know it? And what's the goal there? We're getting to, I think, some bigger stuff that goes beyond just the almost initial part of the story that is flash forward to Kawaki and Code fighting each other. Like, there's no way Kawaki has just in like a couple of years in the time skip killed off all Otsutsuki. So what are we actually talking about here? Then we get to the idea that in the flash forward, we know the village sort of gets wrecked again, which sets up whatever encounter that they're actually having in that moment. He says the Age of Shinobis is over. Is it caused by Kawaki, Code, or someone else? Kawaki doesn't really have the forces or the motivation to take out the village. Like, he has no reason that he would do this because, as he says, his goal is to take out the other Otsutsuki, specifically targeting Boruto within the village. And he's obviously going to defend himself if he gets attacked, but he doesn't have any reason to destroy the village. Code, on the other hand, like, does. He wants revenge against so many key players in the village. Attacking the village itself would be something that he does. Then there's also the whole plot point with like the Ten Tails, the chakra fruit plot that Code, that would turn Code into an Otsutsuki. You know, chakra fruit plus Code would make him an Otsutsuki. That's the whole thing that we got in the anime episode when they adapted that scene, of course. We know that from many chapters ago. And again, is this more of a setup to bring other Otsutsuki into play? That if Code does get defeated with his plan unfulfilled, he's killed, the Ten Tails is going to get used somehow. And it would be a way to draw other Otsutsuki to the planet, knowing that, well, the seed is right there. They actually have a few people that can be used as sacrifices on the planet. Any Otsutsuki wanting to increase their power would want to theoretically come to Earth or whatever the deal is there, and use that to their advantage. And I'm assuming eventually the heads of the clan are going to realize that, hey, we've sent like multiple Otsutsuki members to this planet, and they've all been like killed or like directly dealt with. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. This has never happened to us before, where a planet has put up this much opposition to us. What are we doing? Send in the head of the clan. Send in the top people. It feels like that's the sort of stuff that we're eventually going to get to. Because eventually that's the overall threat here. Is that after all, so much time is going to pass eventually that someone is going to target Earth again. And the only way to, I think, bring true peace to the planet is going to be to deal with the Otsutsukis once and for all. To stop the idea of the threat of them destroying planets for power. But anyway, that's a long-term thing. For now, we are very focused on the character of Kawaki and what exactly we're going to do. And I think the big thing is just his actions will define completely where we're heading in the series. It feels like we have to get to a fight straight away. I think you're going to see the village move into action here, addressing the fact that Naruto and Hinata's kind of chakra signatures are no longer around. I think we probably will see Sasuke get reintroduced. This is all stuff that I think has to happen because I think they are going to build to maybe not a big cliffhanger for this chapter, but certainly I think a big cliffhanger for the end of the volume in the next chapter, which would be 79. Could be huge. And I think the idea is that 78, 79, and 80 are going to be major chapters for Boruto as a series that hopefully will really get us into that sort of almost like Boruto Shippuden kind of type stuff that is, I think, what's needed. I think a time skip and getting to that sooner rather than later is needed, and this big event to sort of end this era for Boruto is absolutely what we need. So glad that we're finally here, and I like that there is just so much to speculate on, and this is like while also ignoring like so much else that's going on. Because again, let's not forget with the stuff like Eida, is that we've also set up this whole situation where like Sarada and Sumire are both immune to Eida's charm, and the whole, I'm not, even though I focused on Eida for little bits and pieces of this, she seems to set up to be much more important than we even think. That's why they've set up the idea that Sarada and Sumire could be the ones to deal with Eida if required. Let's also not forget that Momoshiki has teased us with the idea that he initially he couldn't accurately identify what Eida's charm-based power actually is. But then in the chapter afterwards, I think last week, or the one before, I forget, he teased Boruto with the idea of, I finally identified it. I know what that power is. So obviously, whatever way Eida is using the power, the way it comes across, is it is used differently than whatever way Momoshiki is aware of this power operating. And this is where there's room for big surprises to happen here. Like, I think we're all expecting that the whole Blue Eyes taking everything from you is everyone targeting Kawaki at this point. That everyone is upset at the betrayal of Kawaki. But if Eida's power actually turns out to less be charming people to love her and actually more of like mind control if she chose to use it rather than it being permanently turned on, where she focuses, she can just make people do what she wants. She can make the village turn against Boruto on Kawaki's order if that's the case. And that would change the dynamic in a slightly different way as well. And that's where all of a sudden characters being full on immune to Eida's powers becomes even more of a big deal, rather than it just being a case where, like, as we know it right now, the power allows her to basically not be harmed. No one can be hostile to her because they tend to like/love her. But if it is more of a direct mind control thing that just in whatever way it's just working all the time with Eida comes across as more make people love her, that's an answer to a lot of these questions that would ultimately come into play here. So that's key, I think, in this as well. Now, will they go that far? I'm not sure, but I will just note again that I think they've set up Sarda and Sumire being immune for a reason. And if potentially within the next chapter or two Eida is with Kawaki and we've fully separated sides, that's an interesting perspective, because you sort of wonder, is this going to depend on sort of how Eida views her friendship with these two characters? And maybe there might be a little bit of loyalty to the village, but have we set it up well enough? That's what's hard to predict. But anyway, they're my thoughts going into the new chapter. Of course, I will do my best to get the review out for the upcoming chapter the day it comes out, February 20th, so look out for that on the channel. But otherwise, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on the upcoming chapter. That's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.